And good evening and welcome to Pittsburgh Sports Tonight. John Phillips here. How you doing, folks? We're going to let a few more people jump in here on the live stream, and we'll get started with tonight's show. It's a Wednesday evening. Lots of driving on the highway for me today personally, up and early, and up and down Interstate 79 and across Interstate 80 a few times I was, and was a busy day. Wasn't really listening to a whole lot of radio like I normally would be. I was on the phone quite a bit, but I guess the Steelers were quite busy this afternoon, and we will talk a little bit about that through the course of the next hour. We will be on the air until 8 p.m. this evening when we give way to the Pittsburgh Sports Desk. That show will be immediately following our broadcast here this evening. Trey Carney of Carney Media talks about the Steelers an awful lot on X at Carney Media. Is going to be on the show this evening sometime after 7:30. He'll hop on board. He's got a lot of good information about the Steelers. He talks about them quite a bit. Used to work for ESPN. You can check him out online. We'll get Trey on and get his thoughts and comments on the Steelers, who I think did the last bit of hiring for their coaching staff today. It looks as if the Steelers have finished up with an offensive coordinator, Brian Angelichio, who used to, oddly enough, be on the staff of Mike McCarthy in Green Bay. He has been named the offensive coordinator for the Steelers. They also came to terms, I guess, with Danny Crossman, who is a special teams coordinator, will be a special teams coordinator for the Black and Gold. Joe Witt Jr. will be an assistant head coach and work with secondary players. Domata Pecco, who played for the Cincinnati Bengals, is going to be the defensive line coach for the Steelers. And Pat Riley, not the basketball Pat Riley, apparently has been named defensive quality control for the Steelers. So I think that's 13 total coaches now. I might be off. Might be a little bit more than that, actually, now that I look at the list that I had put together. If you look at the staff right now for the Steelers that we have in place under Mike McCarthy, and here's what we're looking at, folks. We've got Angelichio that has just been named offensive coordinator. You've got James Campen, who used to coach for the Packers. He's going to be the offensive line coach. Assistant offensive line coach will be Jahiri Evans. Running backs coach Ramon Chinyung, who was on the staff of McCarthy's in Dallas. Adam Henry, formerly of the Cowboys as well. Tony Arth will be retained as quarterbacks coach. Offensive staff will be Frank Signetti Jr. On the defensive side of things, you got Patrick Graham, who spent time with the Packers as well. Assistant head coach, part of the secondary, as I mentioned, Joe Witt Jr. Defensive pass game coordinator and defensive backs coach will be Jason Simmons. Inside linebackers coach, Scott McCurley, who has been retained. I mentioned Pecco and, of course, Pat Riley. Special teams and operations, you've got Danny Crossman. I mentioned him from earlier today, a chief of staff, and Steve Scarnecchia, and the strength and conditioning coach, formerly of the Green Bay Packers, Mark Lovath. So again, and when we talked about this with the Mike McCarthy hiring, and this is going back about a week, 10 days ago now, we said that, hey, look, a lot of these guys, they are going to bring in the assistants that they are familiar with, they are comfortable with. And I don't think there's any way to put it that this hire is a 5-year probably hire max for the Steelers, right? I think it's pretty clear that Mike McCarthy is here to try to not rebuild this team, but whatever it is that they take from last year's team, right? Whatever comes back, whatever is shaken from the aftermath of free agency, right? The unrestricted free agents, who can they possibly re-sign? Who do they even want to re-sign? And then who do they jettison off? And from there, you have free agency and the draft to make your roster, right? This is a 5-year job for Mike McCarthy to try to win some playoff games, rebuild, if you will, rebuild from what he has. And therefore, at that point, after 5 years, I don't think you're going to have McCarthy as head coach here. I think you have somebody from this assistant staff that moves on and moves up. I think that's the plan. I really do. And we'll find out, I guess, in due time. But as it is right now, Mike McCarthy pretty much has a staff in place. Kind of curious as to how you feel about all of this. I mean, we are now about 2 weeks in to the Mike McCarthy era here in Pittsburgh, or at least a week and a half in. I guess it was it's been 2 weeks, almost 2 weeks since the hire, and then I guess a little bit more than a week or so since the actual press conference where Mike came in and everybody was kind of in a better mood initially, right? From the actual announcement, there was a lot of anger when it was actually announced that he was going to be the head coach. I was down at the Rivers Poker Room, and the buzz was palpable, if you will, not just in the poker, but when I stepped out to do a quick video and talk a little bit about it, you could hear a few people chattering about it, and they were not necessarily happy about things. I think right now I'm in a position where I'm satisfied to see how the next 30 days play out. I think the next 30 days are critical, right? Does Aaron Rodgers come back? Do we get an announcement? I think that's mission critical here right now, to be quite honest with you. I think we need to know within the next few weeks where Aaron Rodgers stands. I think he's going to come back and play one more year. I think Mike McCarthy knows this. I think things will play out as they probably do in some sort of dramatic fashion. But unlike last year, when the word kind of broke out that, hey, Aaron Rodgers could be possible in Pittsburgh, when it was evident that they weren't going to bring back Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. And, there was once again this opening in the quarterback slot, in the quarterback room for the Steelers. Where are they going to go? What are they going to do? What's going to actually happen? And the way things played out, I think Rodgers is coming back for one more season. I can almost guarantee you that. Not that I know. I just think that that's just the way things will play out for Pittsburgh. And again, I have no delusions of grandeur in terms of how things will turn out for Pittsburgh next year. You're going to have Joe Burrow come back, obviously. For Cincinnati, you're going to see probably a little bit healthier Lamar Jackson. Cleveland is Cleveland, and I don't anticipate any big turnaround there. They've got a train wreck at quarterback right now. I don't know how that will certainly play out. I know a lot was made about the obviously Shador playing in what was the Pro Bowl last night, a glorified flag football game. Oh, and he looked fantastic. And the Browns have their future quarterback. I don't know. Society's doomed. Society's doomed. And I don't say that because he's a young black man. I just say that because he was a 5th-round pick who threw 7 touchdowns and 10 interceptions in 7 games? The last 7 or 8 games of the season. I don't think the Browns are anywhere close to having a franchise quarterback than the Steelers are. They're probably neck and neck, even if Aaron Rodgers decides to come back. It was kind of amusing to see some of the comments this morning. I didn't watch any of the Pro Bowl. I don't know if anybody out there that's on the stream right now happened to. If you did watch the Pro Bowl, I'd be curious as to what you thought about it yesterday or last night. I had no intention of watching it last night. After I got done with the stream, I had a few things to wrap up here in the house, and was fine by me. I just don't think that the Steelers, or at least it just wasn't interesting. You know what I mean? I mean, yeah, it generated some buzz that he was going to play in the Pro Bowl, and I guess it got some people talking about the Pro Bowl. But it's a flag football game, folks. How you can watch what Shador did in a flag football game and say that he is the future of this team is laughable. right? There's no credibility with a statement of that nature. So that's the NFL Pro Bowl for you right now. The game is certainly not the one that we grew up watching. If you're, 40 years of age or older, you actually watched what was considered to be, well, that and Major League Baseball were the two best all-star games, Pro Bowl games. And, hockey at one time was pretty good. The NBA was actually pretty good. At one time, all four of the leagues had, a pretty good all-star game or a Pro Bowl game, if you will. They, baseball and football were extremely competitive. The NBA was extremely competitive. The NHL, for that matter, as well. But, as you start making 30, 40, 50 million a year and you get elected to go to these games, you're thinking to yourself, why am I going to play hard? Things change in the last 10 years, 15 years. And so now you've got these modified versions. Baseball's still the only game, all-star game, Pro Bowl game, if you will, that has some sort of, real competition to it and feel. But last night, anybody talking about Shedeur Sanders being the future of the Browns after last night's performance, whatever it was that he did, I just kind of shake my head. But there you have it. In terms of the Steelers coaching staff, looks like it's filled itself out. I don't know how you particularly feel about it right now, but I'm okay with the way things have played out. I wasn't expecting any flashy signings by Mike McCarthy or people that had perhaps not been on his staff that would slip through and join perhaps. But the fact of the matter is that it looks like the Steelers have a full coaching staff at this point in time. And as I had mentioned, once Mike Tomlin had stepped down, it was going to be critical that whoever came in here beefed up the staff in general. And I think we're starting to see that now. When you're talking about a guy who was making upwards of $20 million, $25 million a year, Mike McCarthy's not commanding that kind of salary. So I think it was fair to say that if Mike was coming in here, he was going to want to beef up the staff, right? Passing game coordinators, running game coordinators, this coordinator, that coordinator. We're starting to see coaches with titles that we hadn't seen before. Now, they may have additional duties, but the staff is going to be larger under McCarthy. I'll be curious to see if they have any kind of analytics that are analytics-based coaches on the staff, right? Or just an analytics team. You've got to drag this franchise into the modern era of where these staffs are at, the types of coaches that they have, and what they're actually planning for, right? I'm not a big analytics guy. That doesn't mean that I don't understand the place of it in the world of sports today, right? Look, there are some of these things that analytics guys do. Like one of my big pet peeves is if you're down by 15 points and you score a touchdown, you got to go for two right away. It's the most insane thing I've ever heard of in my entire life. The Black Friday game is a case in point. When Chicago had a 15-point lead on Philadelphia at home at Philadelphia, the Eagles score a touchdown with just over a couple minutes to go, and they went for two. It was absurd. And of course, they missed, and it forced them to have two possessions that late in the game. I couldn't understand it. But the analytics tell you that if you're down by 15 and you score a touchdown, you're supposed to go for two. Doesn't make any sense to me. It makes no sense, and especially in that scenario when there's only just a few minutes left in a game, and I can't remember where they were at in terms of timeouts. I don't think they had many. You don't do that to yourself. There has to be a point where even a coach has to look at some things and be able to differentiate from what a stat sheet is telling you or a computer's telling you versus where you're at in an actual football game in terms of time, right? If it's third quarter, fourth quarter, how late in the game, how many timeouts you have. And I know that Nick Sirianni took a beating over that, and rightfully so, I believe. Right? I understand where analytics can play a role in a positive way. That was a scenario where it didn't. But I think that's more coaching error than anything else, right? A coach, when they have these numbers in front of them, they have to be able to look at those and make tough decisions in a fairly short time frame, right? And that's where some coaches take a beating, right? Because and look, Mike Tomlin took a beating in certain scenarios of this nature. In game, Mike wasn't great in terms of decision making. He was not good. And that's not to kick a man while he's down or out the door, but that's just the fact of the facts of the facts, right? He was not very good at making decisions on coaching challenges. He was not very good at making decisions on when to use a timeout versus when not to use a timeout. These things pile up over time. So an analytics team, you will live and die by it, but ultimately when you're in the field of play, when you're in a game scenario where things are heightened and you have to make critical decisions in moments, being able to look at something of that nature and say, this is probably not in our best interest, let's kick the extra point. It's a one-possession game, and therefore, if all we need is to get the ball back one time with a chance to score and go for two and tie, it puts us in a better spot. Just some food for thought. You're welcome to make some comments down below. If you're watching us on X, or even if you're on our YouTube channel this evening, please drop a comment. We'd love to know who you are and where you're at and what you might have to say. But yes, the Steelers have filled out their coaching staff. It looks like as a few more announcements from about 2 hours ago via the Steelers X post that I saw. They have an offensive coordinator. He did coach under Mike McCarthy in Green Bay at one time, but the Steelers are filling out their coaching staff, and it looks like they're going to be prepared to move on in 2026, and that's certainly a good thing, as I'm sure people are probably trying to figure out what this staff is going to look like and how things will play out when it comes to who these coaches are going to be and what they bring to the table. Look, a complete reset of the coaching staff, the vast majority of the coaching staff, is a good thing. They have done exactly what they needed to in terms of McCarthy coming in. And again, the majority of these guys have connections to him, a new vision, right? A new vision of people that will take whatever is here and try to turn what they have into a better product than what we saw. And was it a bad product last year? It wasn't a great product. It was a very average product. That's why you got 10-7, and you needed a rookie kicker to miss an extra a field goal attempt to get you into the postseason, where you promptly lost by 24 points. They can be better. It's going to be up to McCarthy and this staff to get them to be better. 11 or 12 wins and a playoff victory would be significant progress. It would be significant progress. Even if they won 12 games and lost a nail-biter in the playoffs without a playoff win, it would be significant progress. I make no mistake about it. They get to the playoffs next year, want to see a victory for sure. I'd love to see 11 or 12 wins. I think Steeler fans would sign up for that in a heartbeat. That would be progress of some capacity. But a playoff win, if they get to the postseason and if they get a home playoff game, is mission critical. But to make sure that you have that confidence, your regular season record, right, where you're positioned in that top four, is going to tell you a lot about your chances of winning an actual playoff game, right? You're a 3 seed or a 2 seed. You've done a pretty good job, and you should be winning a home playoff game. You should be winning a home playoff game, right? And again, you look at what Buffalo did as a 7 seed, right? They went on the road and they beat the 2 seed Jacksonville, and then they went on the road again and lost a nail biter at Denver. I think it actually was a 3-6 matchup, if memory serves me correctly. I'd have to go back and look at that. Nonetheless, Buffalo was able to go on the road and be extremely competitive. If you're a 3 or a 2 seed, you should be winning a home playoff game, right? You should be winning a home playoff game. And that's really what it comes down to, right? 11 wins, 12 wins, a playoff win. Major steps in the right direction. And I'm just telling you right now, that's what I expect out of Mike McCarthy. I expect 11 or 12 wins, and I expect a playoff win. That's what he has to deliver next year, or the fan base is going to just erupt. And I think he knows that. I think the Steelers know that. You're right. I think it's going to take 11 wins to win the division next year, especially if Lamar Jackson's healthy. I know they've got a new head coach, but I still think that Lamar Jackson is Lamar Jackson. I think if, and again, this is a big if Joe Burrow is healthy, the Cincinnati Bengals are a competitive team, right? They're a competitive team. Cleveland's defense, outstanding. Their offense, it's a pile of poop. And it's hard for me to think that the Browns aren't going to improve on last season. Was it 4 wins? 3 or 4 wins. Like, they'll be better next year. They'll be better next year. But by how much? 2 wins? We have no idea who their coach is or their quarterback's going to be. I think it's going to be Shedeur Sanders, but you've got a guy you're paying $240 million in Deshaun Watson. If Sanders comes out and he is the starter in the first couple of games and he doesn't look good, how do you not give the football to Deshaun Watson? How do you not put him under center? That whole franchise is a complete train wreck, however. Appreciate those of you that are hanging out this evening on the live stream. My name is John Phillips. This is Pittsburgh Sports Tonight, 3 nights a week at 7 o'clock here on X, YouTube, and Facebook. Tell a friend. Tell them to tell 10 friends as well. We'll continue to keep doing this through the course of the wintertime. We hope to expand to 4 nights a week at some point here in the not-too-distant future. Enjoying doing all of this after the football season. We started with the Steel City Sunday broadcast. It is going to be a long winter, and obviously the Penguins are heading into a break. We'll see. They lost in Long Island last night. They lost to the Islanders in overtime. I believe it was a 5-4 final score. The night prior, not very good at home against Ottawa. They will wrap up this portion of their schedule tomorrow in Buffalo against a really hot Sabres team, and then they will get 3 weeks off. A handful of the players, I'm not sure how many Penguins are actually going to the Winter Olympics, but a number of them will be representing their various countries in the Winter Olympics. They'll be off for 3 weeks, and then it's a mad dash to the end of the regular season. A lot of hockey is going to be played in a short period of time. I think it's 17 games in the month of March, right? They come back on the is it the 22nd or 23rd? I was looking at the schedule earlier. I think I have it right here now. The Penguins, as it is, right now their last game is on the 5th, and then they'll be off for 3 weeks, and then starting back on at least the 26th of February, they will open back up play. But they've got 17 games on the March schedule. And then they finish off with another 7 in April before the end of the regular season in mid-April. And then, of course, the playoffs will begin shortly after that. So you've got 24 games packed into basically like a 6-week schedule. And if you add the last 2 in February, so that's 26 games basically you're going to be playing over a 7 weeks span. That's a lot of hockey. A physical sport, to say the very least. We'll see how the Penguins play out with all of that. Currently sitting in the second spot of the Metropolitan Division with 68 points. Currently 8 points behind Carolina, who is tied for first in the conference with Tampa Bay. Both of those teams are sitting at the top of their divisions and in the Eastern Conference with 76 points. So the season of hockey will take a short break after tomorrow, and then they'll reconvene 3 weeks later after the postseason or after the Winter Olympics conclude. All right, we will have Trey Carney joining us here in just a little bit. Trey is online at Carney Media, talks a lot about the Steelers, has a lot of good content. You should try to check him out on X. If you are on that platform, Mean Green checking in this evening via our YouTube channel. Nice to hear from you, Mean Green, the new head coach in Cleveland. I do not feel sorry because that franchise is a bottom dweller in the AFC North. As Steeler fans, how can I feel sorry for Cleveland? You know, here's a funny story about that, Mean Green. It wasn't a long time ago. It's almost 30 years now. 30 years ago, Art Modell decided he was going to take his franchise and move it to Baltimore. And in that particular season, I believe it was 96, it was announced during the season that he was moving the franchise to Baltimore. And look, at that point in time, I had come back from Las Vegas after doing syndicated radio. I was kind of in between radio jobs at the time, but I had a lot of access to tickets, and I would go to Steeler games quite frequently. And through Frank Fuhrer, my mother-in-law at the time in my first marriage was involved in the Pennsylvania Turnpike Union and was good friends with Frank. And we would get tickets routinely to go down to their box at the stadium. And I remember going down to the Browns game that year. And Mean Green, I'm going to tell you right now, as God is my witness, I'll never forget not only that game, but the playoff game. The Browns later came back and lost in the wild card to the Steelers that year. I'll never forget Browns fans being consoled by Steeler fans, like literally crying and being held. And there was not camaraderie, there was a sadness. There was a sadness that fans here from Pittsburgh felt that we were losing what was then at that time our most bitter rival. The Cleveland Browns were the Steelers' most bitter rival at that point in time, 30 years ago, right? That game meant a lot. And I remember going to games in the late 80s. I remember going to games in Cleveland when I was in college at Edinburgh, when I was working for a TV station up in Erie. I got a chance to go cover a few Steelers-Browns games at Municipal Stadium. Ugly atmosphere if you are a Steelers fan. And I was carrying a camera on the field, and I could feel the palpable tension in the air even back then. This is going back 30, almost 35 years now. That was gone in 1996 when that decision was made. Steeler fans consoling Browns fans. I wish I had had a camera or would have had some opportunity to take some of the video to show you that these fans were just so distraught, and to see, you never saw a Browns fan and a Steelers fan at that time embracing one another, unless they were locked in a duel of death, right? Unless they were fighting one another. The sadness in the air when Cleveland came to Pittsburgh, and especially for that playoff game, was because they knew it was over. They knew they weren't coming into Three Rivers Stadium and winning. They knew it was over, and they had to wait three or 4 years, right? They had to wait 3 or 4 years to play that game. It was trying to remember. Well, it might have been 5 years actually. Might have been '01. I'm trying to remember how far back it was now. But it was in that time frame where all of this went down. And when Cleveland was losing their football franchise, if you were at any of those games at Three Rivers, if you remember any of that, you'll remember that those fans were just they were beside themselves. I mean, they couldn't believe that they were losing their beloved Browns to a city that had their franchise ripped away, who snuck out of town. For anybody that goes that far back, the Baltimore Colts picking up and leaving for Indianapolis in the night, in the middle of the night. This was in the early days of ESPN. I'll never forget the ESPN video of those Mayflower tractor trailers that had packed things up in Baltimore, and they were heading to Indianapolis. There, you can find the video online. If you go to YouTube, you could probably find it. That was oh my goodness. I mean, you're talking about like that was a big deal. It was not quite like that with Art Modell, right? He did not sneak out of Cleveland per se. He was trying to get a new stadium, and the city would not budge. And Baltimore granted his request, and he picked up his franchise and moved. And Modell was hated for that, and rightfully so. When you take a franchise out of a city and move it like that, you're not going to endear yourself to anyone. But Modell wanted a new football stadium. He wasn't getting it in Cleveland. And the irony is that the Browns are going to be building yet another new football stadium, one with a roof on top of it. I'm curious to see if the Steelers end up with a stadium of their own that has a roof. I can assure you that will never happen in Green Bay. The Packers will never put a roof over Lambeau Field. They'll never leave Lambeau Field, nor should they. The amount of money that they poured into that facility is astronomical. It's a gorgeous building. They have preserved what is the original stadium as best as they have. And if you have never been to Green Bay, by all means, try to make a pilgrimage to Packerland at some point in time, even if it's off season. It is well worth your time to go do the tour. It's the whole city is just, and it's small. It's not, Green Bay proper. It's where the Lambeau Field is located. It's not really in the city, technically speaking. Lambeau itself is situated a couple miles away from the city. And again, downtown Green Bay doesn't have a ton of skyscrapers. It's really a tiny little town, to be quite honest with you. But the whole complex of where Lambeau is, all of the homes that are on the street that run along Lambeau, and then the practice facility and what they have down there is well worth a visit if you ever get a chance. It is well worth your time. I happened to be able to go up there for work this year, and it happened to be during the week of the Packers game, which was nice because I was able to go cover some stuff and just kind of report back. It was good. That city in and of itself is all about the lore of that franchise, and that stadium itself will always be what it is. But this trend of these teams here in the Northeast that want to put a dome over their building. I just, I'm not exactly excited for Cleveland to have that sort of thing. Okay, I believe we have Trey Carney joining us. If you are not following Trey Carney on X, shame on you for 6 weeks at Carney Media. He does a really nice job of dissecting Steelers news. He puts a ton of content out there, former ESPN employee. Trey, good evening. How are you, sir?
Good. How are you? Oh, looks like I'm having a little audio. There we go.
Where are you right now?
Sorry, I was having a little audio issue
last week. Yeah, I'm not getting any volume. I don't know what I don't know. Let's see. Let me try to take you out of here, and we'll see if that does anything here. We'll try to bring you back in here, but let's see if we can get here. I know we have one.
Yeah, I'm not picking up any audio on my end. Yeah, I'm not getting any audio from you on my end. And I just opened up the stream. I don't think we can't hear you. Is your mic muted?
Trey, can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Oh man, this is so terrible. I'm so sorry. I don't know what's going on.
Not a problem.
Oh, there we are. Are you there? I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Absolutely, I can. I just don't even know. All right, there you go. I know Cole Underwood has been sitting here waiting for you to get on, and he's a happy guy. I'm happy I was able to figure this out. How you doing this evening, sir?
Oh, I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Geez, I don't even know half the time. I swear. But we're on the air, and I guess we're able to make some things happen. So okay, so let's start with the Steelers announcement today. They have added an offensive coordinator. No surprise, he has a connection to Mike McCarthy. Your thoughts on Brian Angelicchio, please?
I like the hire. He's been with O'Connell the last 4 years, especially as the pass game coordinator. We got to see Sam Darnold kind of flourish there, kind of revive his career. And obviously, the biggest thing that we've been seeing with this hiring of McCarthy is their goal is to develop the next franchise guy. Whether that's Will Howard, someone they get in the draft, some young gun they trade for, pick up, or maybe someone in the 2027 draft. The mission is clear that they are going to develop the next franchise guy in Pittsburgh. So I'm kind of high on this pickup. I know a lot of people wanted Tolson out of New Orleans. Young gun, very good what he's doing with quarterback situation there. But this is still a good hire. Obviously, I love the everyone talking about the Pitt connections. And another thing that I kind of laugh at is a lot of people upset with McCarthy hiring a lot of his old former staff mates. But, this is a veteran coach. When it comes to winning success, he's one of the best at it. Almost top 10 in playoff wins, top 15, maybe even top 10 in regular season wins. So obviously he knows what he's doing. He knows the type of guys he wants. And if it's guys that he's worked with the past, it's worked. So why not keep going with it?
I like your thought process in that, and I agree with you. I think, a coach that has a proven record like this is going to want to go with guys that he knows and is comfortable with. I think the Tolzien interview kind of disappointed some people, maybe, obviously. Who knows if they made him an offer? I don't know if they did, but they've gone the route that they have. And I agree with you. I think the people he's bringing in right now, and especially this particular position, is there to work with not necessarily who they're going to have in place next year. And I think a lot of people agree that it most likely is going to be one more season of Aaron Rodgers. And again, I'm okay with that. That gives, whoever they decide to bring in here next year. And I don't know if they'll move up to pick a quarterback in the first round. We'll talk about that maybe more in a moment. But I agree with you. These hires, and especially this particular one, is meant to try to start developing somebody, whether that's Will Howard or not. And I guess we can start with Will Howard. Look, 6th round pick, right? And people can make what they want of a Tom Brady and Brock Purdy, who's doing pretty good for himself out in San Francisco. They're few and far between when you're in the late rounds. These quarterbacks that are developed in the late rounds are few and far between. Let's just say they don't go get a Ty Simpson or they make a quarterback selection on day 2, right? And we'll talk about the draft here in a few minutes. Will Howard, what are we going to try to see from him in preseason? Like, obviously he's going to get a chance to hopefully throw the football quite a bit. What can you expect from a guy who was picked in the 6th round that, played fairly well for a national championship team 2 seasons ago?
One, he's got to stay healthy. I mean, obviously we didn't get the opportunity to see him this past preseason because of the hand injury, but obviously, McCarthy's harped on him, talking very highly of him, and kind of going back to the 6th round, day 3 quarterback. It's a rare occurrence that we see it nowadays that you develop a day 3 quarterback into your franchise guy, but also teams have done it. And, I do see the delusion of a lot of fans thinking Will Howard's going to be this multi-time Super Bowl winning MVP caliber quarterback. That's a pipe dream at the moment. Not saying, hey, they could surprise us. As I kind of touched on last week, Will Howard's tape, especially in the college football playoffs, was impressive. If he played like that all of his senior season, we might have not had the opportunity to pick him in the 6th round. So there is the upside there. The potential's there, the size is there. But the biggest thing that, we need to see from him is, him getting that NFL game reps. We haven't had the opportunity to. He's got an advantage of a lot that many rookie quarterbacks would dream of, working under Aaron Rodgers, one of the best to ever do it in the league. He has that, and Aaron's even been high on him. So seeing him progress this offseason is going to be the biggest thing to watch. Seeing the opportunities he gets, especially if per se Aaron decides not to come back. They're going to have to try to bring in a veteran guy, probably in there. Obviously, they have Mason. Mason didn't do too well this past season, so we might see some Howard out there. And if Rodgers decides not to come back and they don't want to spend the draft capital that they've been working on the last few years for this 2026 NFL draft, we talked. You kind of mentioned a little bit of the draft, maybe trading up for a quarterback. I mean, outside of Mendoza, it's the risk versus rewards not there with a lot of these quarterback, prospects. The only thing I could see them moving up the draft to get is a wide receiver, getting Carnell Tate or Lemon, maybe even Tyson. But that's really the only thing I could see him moving up for. I don't think they have enough capital to get into the Mendoza sweepstakes. So, if Rodgers decides not to come back, they're a little handcuffed there at the quarterback position. So if McCarthy's really banking on Howard to be the guy this year, he's got a lot of work ahead of him. But I think the staff he's brought in might bring a little bit more confidence into the development of him for a season to see what he's got. And if he doesn't work out, hey, you've got a high draft pick for 2027 and a loaded QB draft class.
And that's the trade-off. Like even before when Mike stepped down and in between the McCarthy hire, I was fairly clear that, look, whoever they bring in, if they go 5-12, I can live with that, right? Because the caveat is you're going to move up into the top 10, top 8. You win 5 games, you might be top 7, top 6 even, depending on where things flush out in terms of that first round pick. And again, if people remember that 2003 season when they had 6 wins, what happened? They ended up picking 7th, and who did they end up getting? They ended up getting their franchise quarterback, who was passed up by the Cleveland Browns, I might add. We've got Trey Carney on for a few more minutes. He was very kind enough to join us this evening. Carney Media on X. Go check out his content. Very Steelers-centric, Pittsburgh-centric. Does a really nice job of just kind of covering the ins and outs of what the Steelers are doing. Let's talk about the draft. I don't know if you've jumped into any mock drafts or anything like that right now. Assuming they don't jump up, right, with 12 picks and they don't have enough, I think, in the arsenal to get, like you said, into the top 2 or 3. Yeah, Mendoza is probably going to go number 1 to the Raiders as it is. But let's just say that they don't move up in the draft this year. Is wide receiver the priority in the first round?
It all depends on free agency, but even then, I'm not blown away with the options available. And honestly, I don't really see them being too overly aggressive, getting a true big option next to DK. So I honestly believe wide receiver is their course of action. I think there's really at that spot, it's going to be 2 options if they don't trade up: Boston out of Washington and KC out of A&M. Those are your top 2 choices right there, because obviously Tate, Tyson, and Lemon, they're gone. Those 3 guys I'm pretty high on. But if they don't grab anyone in free agency that can really elevate to that wide receiver 2 role, I would not be surprised with all that extra capital they have to use it to get Lemon or Tate. I think Tyson's going to be off the board fairly quick. I think he's by far the best wide receiver option right now. Obviously, stuff can kind of change, especially after the combine. Someone blows out with a 40-yard dash, has a good workout, and obviously with the top 30 visits, things fluctuate from there, but I think Tyson's the clear-cut number 1. So for me, if I'm Omar Khan, I'm trading up to try to get Tate or Lemon. I think those 2 guys by far will elevate the wide receiver room. They get that weapon, and it makes this place more desirable for a lot of these quarterbacks, whether it's free agency or drafts. Because one of the things we're now going to start seeing in college is a lot of these college quarterbacks they're kind of seeing where they might land. I mean, Dante Moore out of Oregon, he didn't want to go to the Jets. He took his name. I mean, think about 5 years ago, how crazy it would be for a player who's probably going to be a top 5 pick say, no, I'm good. I'm going to go back to college. I mean, it was unheard of. Risk of injury and everything, you ruin your draft stock. Now, I mean, Moore's making millions playing one more year at Oregon. So, that's actually one of the things that a lot of these GMs got to look at. Are we a desirable place for a top quarterback prospect to come in? So I think getting your hands on a guy like Tate or Lemon's got to be a priority.
I agree. And, look, again, and that's a great point, by the way. Nowadays, with the way NIL is set up with these players, if their camp does not feel like they're positioned to go to a team that they enjoy or think that would be a good fit for them, they can easily just market themselves to another college or stay where they're at, make a couple $1 million. And, it's pretty blatant now that they're just not even going to school. I mean, they're just literally playing, and that's all they do year round. I don't know. I don't know how I obviously you look at how NIL has negatively impacted the game in terms of the portal, and players are constantly, was it like 10,000 players or something like that between the divisions, like all the different divisions and levels of college football, or at least a couple thousand of them are into the portal, and they're moving around, and they're shopping themselves around. It's completely changed the game, and it does afford these top level guys who are projected to go high in rounds 1 and 2. Hey, do I want to stick around and play another year of college football? Do I test the draft? Do I like where I might be? Especially if you're in that top 10, you kind of get a decent feel for who may be looking at you. And if you don't like the team, your agent makes a phone call. Next thing you know, you're getting $2 or $3 million to stay back in college. That's very true. Just another question or so for Trey Carney before we let him go. He's very kind with his time at Carney Media on X, if you want to check him out. In terms of defensively for this team, what changes are you thinking you may see? Obviously the team's got to look at the unrestricted free agents that they want to maybe talk to. I don't know if there's many of them that they may. There are some questions about maybe Patrick Queen, maybe about Cam Hayward. I'm just kind of curious as to how you feel about the Steelers' defensive side of the ball and what offseason potential moves you might think are important or could happen.
So honestly, a lot of people have been talking about, Queen being a casualty, maybe even Ramsey. I don't see it. Honestly, one of the things that Patrick Graham has been, looked at and people respect is he's very vocal about, how he schemes with his personnel. He schemes his personnel to their strengths. A lot of, what we saw the last few years with our defense is it's our way or the highway. And a lot of times we're out of positions because we're not playing to our players' strengths. Graham, on the other hand, he mixes things up because he wants to put his defense in the best position. And I mean, look what he was doing with the Raiders defense. I mean, outside of Crosby, what did they have? They didn't have anything. It was a bunch of practice squad players put together. I mean, I put out a post, I believe, in Graham's tenure with Las Vegas, they only spent 3 draft picks in the first 3 rounds over 4 years on defense. I mean, that's not going to cut it. And he, hit the advanced analytics, he was top 15. His defense was top 15. I mean, that's pretty impressive. So now you give him talent, give him guys that, are higher caliber players. I think we're going to see a massive step forward. So I don't see them making a lot of major changes. I think they'll add some better depth in the inside linebacker room. Obviously Holcomb, being so injury prone. I think Malik Harrison, wasn't like anything spectacular to watch or wasn't making all these amazing plays. So I think that we're going to work in there. The outside linebacker room is probably one of the best it's been in years. They'll probably look to bring in a, more competent corner 2, opposite Joey Porter Jr. kind of, bolster that room up a bit. And, we get Deshaun Elliott back, maybe look to bring in quality depth, maybe bring Kyle Duggar back for another year in that depth position. But overhaul changes, I don't see it happening. I think they like where the defense is at personnel wise, and I think that's a big reason why they brought in Graham. I think they like that philosophy he has, and they're going to see if he's able to bring that defense into that top 5 category we've been waiting to see. So I don't see any major changes. They could prove me wrong, but they, roster wise, McCarthy was pretty happy where it's at. And I think they're going to let Graham kind of roll with it and maybe just add some good quality depth position and definitely that corner 2 position.
Trey Carney Media on X, very detailed, puts a lot of time into what he puts on X in terms of Steelers coverage and other aspects of the world of sports. Trey, thanks for sticking in there with me. I appreciate it. You do a great job. I can't thank you enough for coming on this evening.
Oh, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Trey Carney, great job. You should check his stuff out on X. He really, the time he puts into what he posts is very detailed. It's well thought out. And since I came across him recently, it was nice to be able to get him on the show. We had an issue last week with what we were doing online, and tonight, obviously, with the technical issues, they were on my end, by the way. I was able to figure it out. I'm such an idiot. I'm 56. I'm a dinosaur. Like, trying to figure out all this technical stuff is like the worst thing for me, and I'm trying to figure it all out. I really want to be good at this sort of thing, but I'm probably 15 or 20 years behind the curve. Okay, that's it for us tonight. I want to thank everybody for participating in the show. I want to thank Trey especially for coming on and giving us some time this evening. Close to 40 of you hanging out this evening. I like the numbers. They're going up every week. Please make us a part of your routine if you were hanging out this evening. 7 o'clock, 3 nights a week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays. We are here. At some point, I do want to get to a 4th night, but right now we're going to stick with the 3. And I'm enjoying this. I'm going to have some more guests next week. I'm excited to be able to bring on some people that I see on social media that I think are funny and unique, that are Pittsburgh centric. We'll have some announcements probably Monday regarding schedule for next week. So you can check us out on X. As I had mentioned, all of our social media locations are easily found by just putting in @SteelCitySunday. If you just go to any of the social media sites, you can find us @SteelCitySunday, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, X, and TikTok. Of course, we broadcast live here on YouTube, X, and Facebook 3 nights a week. Okay, stick around for the Pittsburgh Sports Desk that's immediately following this show. I'm John Phillips. Thanks for watching us this evening, folks. This has been Pittsburgh Sports Tonight on the It's a Wrap Sports Network.